So we mentioned beach replenishment. Here is an example of sand being piped in, dredged sand coming out of a huge pipe and being smoothed out by this bulldozer, right? So obviously, if you have money, you can pay for these things and do these things. There are many other things happening, like if you go to Barcelona, you will see beaches where recycled bottles and plastic are used to create sand and replenish the beaches. So there is some recycling going on, which has got some benefits in some ways, but it's not clear what happens when that gets into the water and what happens to the marine life and so on. But hopefully they've done all those calculations. Then there is this idea from Japan. I think this place is called Sea Gaia. I don't know if you guys know what Gaia is. Gaia. Gaia is a hypothesis that was proposed by James Lovelock, which said that life tends to regulate its own atmosphere. We won't go into the details, but the name is kind of evocative. Sea Gaia, sea replenishing itself. So this is an artificial indoor beach. This is the world's largest indoor beach. Look how happy people are. So there is a nice cluster of restaurants, bars, and entertainment here. There is a huge screen here that is providing some skyline-like view from of the ocean. There is this little pine island on which there is a person sitting. There are these swimming areas and so on and so forth. This is an artificial beach indoors. And then here is the mixed use beach where lots of cows are also enjoying the beach. You can imagine beaches in India having lots of cows. So the alternatives to hard stabilization, one of the alternatives we considered was relocation, moving structures. And there are some examples. For example, this lighthouse, which was about to fall into the sea up here, it was moved once and then the erosion happened again. So finally it was moved off of Cape Hatteras. Remember, these are all the depositional beach structures, barrier islands. So you want the lighthouse to be out in the water as far into the water as possible so the ships can see it from as far away as possible, right? That's the purpose of the lighthouse. But these things are erosional, subject to high erosions, as we already said. Atlantic is eroding at almost a meter per year. So it was moved at, I don't know, several tens of millions of dollars, about 300 feet back away from the water. So that's an example, but there are lots of discussions going on about how to move people away. There are actually houses built that can be lifted and moved. So you can see here the entire lighthouse being lifted and moved. So the expert house movers can do that for you. Lots of houses get moved in the US. In India, we build concrete houses that can stay for a long time. In the US, houses are not built to stay for a long time. The last topic of this short chapter is on salt marshes and mangrove swamps. Salt marshes occur typically north of about 35-degree latitude out almost into the Arctic Circle here. So those are the salt marshes. And mangrove swamps are more of the tropical subtropical features. We already mentioned the mangroves in the Ganga-Brahmaputra Delta. Mangroves are really, really amazing. They are saltwater plants that can actually remove excess salt by crystallizing the salt on their leaves. They have this kind of a tripod-like root structure that allows them to stand on top of water and do their photosynthesis and so on. They produce oxygen and oxygenate the water, which is good for biodiversity. They are wave dampers, so when the cyclones or storms come in, they actually act as natural barriers. They filter the nutrients coming in from agricultural land and other runoff from the land and transition cleaner water into the ocean, and they bury a lot of organic carbon because they are in shallow water. Whatever falls from the mangrove forests, you can see the mangrove forests here, they can fall and they get buried and the carbon gets sequestered. And these wetlands, salt marshes, they can also serve as bird sanctuaries, biodiversity, clams, oysters, shrimp, fish. They even have Bengal tigers. I mean, there is infinite ecosystem services provided by mangroves and salt marshes. They serve as homes for many million migrant birds, seasonal migration of birds, and so on. And they're beautiful places to visit. Ecotourism can be used to help protect them, right? So mangroves have been lost in large numbers. Salt marshes have been occupied, closed down and occupied because they're just seen as useless swamps. But now the awareness is high. Protection efforts are growing, and there is some evidence that mangrove forest decimation is slowing down, if not ended. New mangroves have to be grown. The other thing, for a country like India, which has promised to reduce its carbon emission by changing its energy use, renewable energy, and so on. It's also promised to grow new forests to increase carbon sequestration. But these mangrove forests can, the coastal carbon systems can sequester 3 to 10 times more carbon than the land forests. Okay, it's called blue carbon in the water. So if you are going to get into this field, you should look into blue carbon and how coastal recovery of mangrove forests and salt marshes and wetlands and alluvial plains and so on help sequester carbon and actually can be used as a causal driven mechanism to save these valuable ecosystems. Right? Think about it. These are so many co-benefits, they're called. So many co-benefits to these ecosystems and so much productivity in them. Okay, so learn all you can about these salt marshes, wetlands, and mangrove forests. Very useful ecosystems.